Sun in the 7th house. Welcome to Sun in the 7th house in synastry. In this overlay, we explore what happens when one person's sun, their core identity, vitality, sense of self, and life force, falls into another person's 7th house, the house of partnership, marriage, significant one-to-one relationships, and the encounter with the other as a mirror of the self. Where the 6th house governs the self in service, the 7th house governs the self in relation. It is the territory of commitment and contract, of the profound and sometimes difficult work of being in genuine partnership with another person. It is also, crucially, the house of the mirror, the place where we encounter in others what we have not yet fully integrated in ourselves. When someone's sun lands here, it does not simply enter into relationship. It becomes the primary object of the house person's relational attention, and that is a position of considerable significance and considerable weight. The sun person brings their identity, their presence, and their fundamental way of being in the world directly into the space where the house person conducts their most important one-to-one relationships. They do not arrive as a friend, a colleague, or a passing acquaintance. They arrive as someone the house person recognizes, on some level, as relevant to the question of partnership itself. From the house person's perspective, the sun person may feel, from the beginning, like someone who is meant to matter. This is one of the most commonly reported qualities of sun in 7th connections, a sense of fated relevance, a feeling that this person has arrived for a reason. That feeling is not illusion. There is something real in the resonance, but it is worth examining carefully, because the 7th house is the house of projection as much as it is the house of partnership. And what feels like recognition is not always the same as what is true. The 7th house, in its psychological dimension, is where we place what we have not claimed in ourselves, the qualities we most admire in a partner, the attributes we feel we lack and seek to complete through another person. These reside here. The sun person, falling into this house, is likely to carry some of those projected qualities. The house person may experience them as exceptional in ways that are partly accurate and partly a function of what they need the sun person to be. Disentangling the two is slow work, and it requires honesty that many 7th house connections resist in their early stages, because the projection is pleasurable. The sun person, for their part, often experiences this connection as unusually significant. There is something in the house person's quality of attention, the way they are regarded, the seriousness with which they are engaged, that feels unlike other relationships. The house person treats the sun person as central, as important, as someone whose identity and presence genuinely matter in the construction of their own life. For the sun, which is oriented toward being seen and recognized, this quality of regard can be deeply compelling. The risk is one of over-identification. The sun person may begin to define themselves through the relationship, to feel that who they are is legible primarily in the context of this partnership. The house person, in parallel, may begin to require the sun person's presence as a condition of their own sense of balance. Two people who are each organizing themselves around the other have created an intimate system, but not necessarily a healthy one, and the question of where each person ends and the other begins can become genuinely difficult to answer. Opposition dynamics are inherent in this overlay. The 7th house is the house of the other, which means it is also the house of opposition, not conflict exactly, but the structural tension that exists between two distinct centers of gravity. The sun person is a strong presence, and strong presences generate resistance as well as attraction. The house person may find that they oscillate between drawing the sun person close and pushing back against the weight of their energy, not because anything has gone wrong, but because the 7th house is built for this kind of dynamic negotiation. Commitment tends to be a theme that surfaces earlier in this overlay than in others. The 7th house is associated with formal partnership, with the impulse to name the relationship, to stabilize it, to bring it into a more permanent form. The sun person's presence here activates that impulse in the house person in a way that can feel urgent. The house person may find themselves thinking in terms of long-term potential very quickly, and while that is not inherently problematic, it is worth ensuring that the thinking is grounded in real knowledge of the person rather than in the powerful but potentially distorting quality of the initial recognition. The Sun person may also find themselves drawn toward defining the relationship, not necessarily toward formality, but toward clarity. Their identity, which is oriented toward coherence and expression, does not sit comfortably in ambiguity. They will tend to want to know what this relationship is, what it means, and where it is going. That need for definition can be clarifying, or it can create pressure, depending on where the house person is in their own readiness. At its highest expression, this overlay produces one of the most genuinely partnered dynamics in synastry. The Sun person finds a context in which their identity is not just received, but met, engaged with, reflected back, challenged, and honored in equal measure. The house person finds in the Sun person a presence that completes something in them, not in the sense of filling a lack, but in the sense of providing a counterpart who makes their own identity more visible and more fully themselves. When this works well, there is a quality of genuine equality at the center of the connection. Not sameness, but the recognition that both people are whole, distinct, and enriched by the encounter. The mirror, when it is clear rather than distorting, is one of the most powerful instruments of self-knowledge available to a human being. At its core, Sun in the 7th house in synastry is about what we see in another person that we are finally ready to see in ourselves, and what it means to choose someone not to complete us, but to illuminate us.
This was Sun in the 6th house in synastry overlays. Thank you for listening. Next, Sun in the 7th house.